Hello, I'm Dr. Brenda Murphy, and welcome to Strong at Home. We're having conversations that we hope will encourage, inspire, and inform you to be strong at home. And recently, we have been talking about the COVID situation. I am a COVID survivor, and we are having conversations with others who are COVID survivors as well. And today, I want to welcome to Strong at Home Leona Long. Hi, Leona.
Hi,
Welcome
Brenda.
to our conversation. And
Thank you.
and I know it's kind of like, well, would we prefer not to be a candidate for a strong at home conversation about COVID or not? Life happens and we accept it as it comes to us. And we share that distinction of having survived COVID. And before we talk about that experience, I'd like for you to tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and how you came to be where you are now.
Okay. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have four children. They have been homeschooled their whole life. My oldest two have graduated. One works full time and one is in college full time. I have two younger ones still at home, uh, eighth grade and sixth grade, and they are both very active in public school sports. So we spend a lot of time doing schoolwork and at the gym or at the field. So we're pretty busy just doing that.
Yeah, and you have been active in a lot of community activities there in our community for a long time. That being a stay-at-home mom doesn't just mean that we stay at home with our kids all the time,
Right.
does it?
It doesn't. I was the program director for our local Boys and Girls Club for 4 years. Our club's closed right now still for COVID.
Mhm.
So, but I had quit back in November of last year just because my kids needed more of my time.
Yeah.
So we had to be a place at a certain time, and they needed me. Although I miss those kids a lot at the club, so but I guess it's a little easier because the club is closed right now. But
Makes sense.
they
Yeah.
need the club, they need it. So
Yeah, that's a really important community service for our kids who don't have an opportunity to really be at home full time or even in the afternoons because no one's there to watch them. So, actually, you probably applied a lot of what you learned in homeschooling to taking care of the kids that would come to the clubs.
absolutely, a lot of times they would need help with schoolwork. I wasn't always able to help them as much just because we teach on different types of levels. Mine is Christian homeschooling, so some of the things were a bit different, and I'm not a Common Core math person, so we're still old school. 2 plus 2 is 2, or 4. The 2 plus 2 for Common Core is still 2, and I'm like, what? So
Yeah, it's
sometimes I was confused. I could get the answer for him, but it wasn't the right way.
yeah, that I know that is in math. Hope, and then of course that will cycle back because like 30 years ago they were doing something not totally different than Common Core, or they called it the new math then. But there's nothing old, there's
Right,
nothing new under the sun. It's all just kind of recycled over time. And
right.
in your lifestyle, I know you were homeschooling, but how would you describe yourself and your family? How, before this COVID came in and when COVID actually, came into our world, what
Mhm.
was your reaction to it? I know I had a reaction to it. What was your reaction to it?
Well, most people consider me a germaphobe, and I am. I'm constantly, let's take our vitamins, make sure you're sanitizing, wash your hands, wash your hands again, let's wash your hands again. um, I was scared, I was nervous. We had actually just come out of basketball tournaments, and I carried a bag of sanitizing supplies because it was flu season. We had the schools had closed earlier on for flu, and I carried cleaning supplies because we were in a tournament and would clean the locker rooms before the boys went in because I didn't want my kids to get the flu. So when
Of
COVID
course.
came,
Yeah.
I was, and people, it was scary. I mean, we didn't know what this was. People were sick, and some were really sick, and then some weren't so sick. And I panic bought. We stayed home. I lost count at about 58 days.
Wow.
And then our first outing that we went was the outing that I went with you. We were together. And again, that's where we think we all might have got it.
Yeah. That's our common bond.
Yes. I did wear my face mask in the door. When I sat down, I took it off. I didn't feel like I was, at a threat to get it or anything. And as you recall, when we had a conversation, we were all outside together, right. And we weren't, shoulder to shoulder. We were distant. So a week later is, I didn't feel real good, but I kind of thought it was heat exhaustion. That was the 4th of July weekend. Felt fine the next day, but my husband had went back to work. We'd had the long weekend, and he had been off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And he come home. He said, "I'm just tired. I'm going to bed." And woke up in the middle of the night, and he was sick.
Yeah.
Now, high fever.
Your husband, was he going out even though you were in the house, except for the experience of coming to Sailaway's graduation? You had been in the house for 58 days. Was he working from home?
My husband was an essential worker. He's an electrician. He did go to work every day. Of course, like I said, I panicked. When he come to the door, everything, I literally Lysoled him. I mean, he would cover his face and I would Lysol him. I would bleach his shoes. I had bleach spray. Bleach and water. His shoes went in a bucket outside the door. Then, so nothing got to him. We have raccoons around here and stuff. And he had to go straight to the shower. His clothes went in a bag and his clothes went straight to the washing machine. So he didn't come near anybody until he was fully cleaned. And I had antibacterial soap. I'm like, no, you take a bath in antibacterial soap, they didn't like it too much, but he knew I was scared. And then I would sanitize the whole bathroom, spray everything down before the next, if we had to take showers behind him, I would spray the showers just to be case, or, be careful. And anything he touched, we bleached door handles every single day because I didn't want to get sick.
Of course. Who would? Nobody
exactly. And especially with something we know nothing about.
Exactly.
You just don't know. So he was, in fact, the first to get sick, really sick, but he tested negative. They said he had strep throat. So, but he did not have a sore throat. Yes, he did not have a sore throat. He did not have a runny nose. He did not have a cough. The only real symptom he had was he had a high fever of about 103. I think the highest I remember that it got was 103.9, but
that's high.
Yeah. He thinks they probably done the test wrong that day. They only swabbed one nose, but he had to have a COVID test in order to go back to work. If you miss a day of work with fever, he has to have a COVID to return to work. That's pretty much everywhere, I think.
Yeah. So did he go back to work then?
He did not. He got sicker as the week went on. This was on Tuesday that he was in the doctor's office. And he called me. He said, "Oh, I just have strep." I said, "Thank goodness, just strep,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they put him on a high-dose antibiotic. By Friday, he was much sicker. He did not hesitate when I said, "We need to go to the ER." He was at the door and ready to go. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think I'd get this far. Usually nobody wants to go to the ER.
No.
He was having a lot of back pain and stomach pain, but they thought it was from the antibiotic. So they gave him another antibiotic shot, Tylenol, ibuprofen, high doses of that, Zofran, another antibiotic pill, sent him home and changed his antibiotics. So Saturday, he felt a little better maybe because he had so much medicine in him. Yes. And then by Sunday morning, we were back in the ER. They rushed him straight back. They thought he was having a heart attack. Hooked him up to everything. He was real agitated. He was terrified. He didn't know what was wrong. And they done a chest x-ray. They said, "You have pneumonia." And he said, "You have to have another COVID test." So this time they done a throat swab, and we had the results the next day that it was positive. And that's when I kind of went down. So that Sunday, I lost my taste and my smell. And that
Oh,
was that
and that,
Monday, he got his positive result. And the health department actually told me not to come in because I had all the symptoms and we had COVID positive in our house. And there was no need in exposing anybody else. So,
so we had been at the Sail Away graduation on Monday, June the 29th,
right.
and it was like Friday and like over that weekend that
Mm-hmm.
your husband started feeling bad. Was it the Friday he started feeling bad?
It was actually the following Monday, the Monday after the 4th. It was the 7th, I think.
The 7th that he started feeling bad,
Mm-hmm.
and you started feeling bad about the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I didn't feel bad the week of the 7th. Mine was more about the 11th that I
11.
started getting the symptoms. And I thought, and then when I heard that one of the other ladies, Marilyn, had from our group,
Yes.
I messaged one of the girls from the homeschool group and I told her, I said, you better message Brenda and let her know because we were together. And I think you got that email from her.
I
And
did. Yeah.
then I found out you had it, and I thought, oh
Yes.
no. And
Yeah.
then Randy, the preacher, had it, and I was like,
Yeah.
this
So
is our circle.
yeah. So I mean, I think that for us it was a very hard decision, for at least for your family, to know exactly where you got it. I
Right.
felt the same way, and as I shared when I shared my story, that I was like you. I went in and had my mask on and wore it part of the time, and remember washing my hands 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And at that point in our county, we had only had, I think, like 8 or 9
Yes. Yeah,
cases,
it was very low.
very low, and most of those were people who had our county address, but actually lived in a larger city, either Knoxville or Nashville or somewhere else. And I
Right.
think we were feeling very comfortable. The facility sat over 1,000 people. We
Yes.
sat, so it was very surprising, I think,
Right.
that we would come down with it. And
Exactly. Yeah. And then, when we were outside in our little circle group, not everybody in that group was affected.
right,
So,
yeah, so it's hard to say that also you really don't know, because your husband was exposed. He
right.
started having symptoms before, so it may have been that your family really got it more from him than at the graduation.
Right. I mean, it's just hard to say. Like I said, at his work, the guy that tested positive, he had walked in and handed him some paperwork and walked back out. They did not think that his time around him would qualify him to have gotten it there. That fact and the fact that he tested negative,
Yeah, that first time.
and while we got the wrong result, we think after seeing how they actually do the testing and knowing what they do now, we just don't think they tested him right. I mean, he had every COVID symptom. He did not have any strep symptoms. But because of that first false test, they tried to deny him his unemployment. His work said, no, he did not get COVID from here, and he did not test positive, and we're not going to pay him unemployment.
Oh,
So,
oh my!
that's right.
Did that get resolved?
He ended up having to file for his family medical leave.
Oh,
He got
wow.
short-term disability because otherwise he would have gotten fired, because you can't, even though you're sick, you have COVID, and they tell you to stay home, it still racks up as an occurrence, which, we call, they call it an occurrence there. So it's just and if you get 7, then you're fired.
Oh,
So they immediately signed him up for that. So he got a small check, which was not, not a lot, but we had neighbors that helped us. My sweet neighbors next door, they would put groceries on our doorstep. The neighbor on the other side would send the kids chocolate and candy. And that's another thing. Like my kids, we quarantined them to the downstairs. We hung up plastic through the house
Leona,
to keep.
let me ask you something. We are at our time on this conversation. Would you mind if we stop and come back? Would you come back and finish your conversation? Because I want to hear about what your kids went through, because so
Sure.
many families don't. So we will stop for now, and we'll end like we always do with our prayer, and then we'll come back and finish this conversation.
Okay.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.